Well, hello everybody. We have a special treat here today. We have the wonderful Miss Carolyn Young here, and she's going to teach some class to all of us on, writing offers, talking to clients, how to prepare them. Just great lessons that, might be reminders to all of us, but might be a new way of thinking for some of us as well. So for those that don't know Carolyn, her team is up to 28 team members now, crushing it. They work in Maryland, West Virginia, and Northern Virginia, and been doing a great job. Carolyn's team is always looking for new team members. If you're out there and love all the things you hear Carolyn talking about today, I will say this: if you join Carolyn's team, be ready to work. They work hard. They're successful. They've got a great team bonding together. But you got to be ready to rock and roll, because they want to crush it out there. So Virginia, Maryland, or Northern or West Virginia, if you're interested, always reach out to Carolyn, because she's always looking for those great teammates to continue to grow within our Samson footprint. But today we're going to rock in and get going. So welcome, Carolyn. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you guys all for having me here today.
Awesome. So we jump in. The first thing we talk about is you're going to meet that new buyer. Where are you starting?
So I guess back to the first slide. Right?
There you go. Back to the first slide.
So basically trying to go to date how to write an offer from start to finish. And it really goes from the very start. And the start of how you write an offer is the first conversation or meeting that you happen to have with that buyer is when it starts.
It doesn't start when we write the contract?
No,
Okay.
no.
Gotcha. So that first conversation, that's where it starts.
Yes. So for me, Donnie, and the way that we train our team is when you show up for that first appointment, you can't anymore. This is not a market that you can just show up and open the door and say, I'll set you up on a search. Let me know if you see anything you like. Right. Those days are gone.
Right.
So you got to show up. You got to know your neighborhood stats. You've got to bring your value and your skill set to the meeting and make sure that when you're there, that you are there with a purpose. You're there to win a client and you're there to sell a house. That's a whole nother thing.
So this is different for most people, because a lot of people, they'll be like, well, they'll take that call and they're just going to meet them at a house. But your advice is meet them, have that buyer presentation, have that first meeting where you're kind of going through all this stuff.
Yeah. And that, I guess what I'm getting into is even more, that could be a whole nother class, like how to get the buyer as a client. But let's just go from the fact that, when you're meeting them, you got to show up, you got to know what's sold in the neighborhood, what price is that per square footage, what's the absorption rate in the county and the subdivision. Know your stuff. So when you go, they're like, this person knows what they're talking about. And one of the questions that we always ask anyone, and that can get into a buyer consultation, but we'll use it for purposes today of how to teach them about the market and how to write a contract.
Gotcha.
And we always ask them, the big line on our team, has anyone ever sat down with you and explained the buying process and what it looks like to buy in today's market? And that applies to anybody. I don't care if someone says, I bought 10 homes. Well, we sold 500 last year, and it's different this month than it was last year. So I want to tell you, would you like to know? And people like that.
Right. Yeah, and it kind of sets that stage where, okay, well, tell us what it is today. You might have bought even 2 years ago, but It's a whole different world today, right?
It's a different market right now.
So excellent. Good advice. What's this next thing we're looking at? This beautiful picture here is your buyer roadmap. So what does this mean?
It is. And if anyone wants one, or email me, or I can give it to you, whatever. They're awesome. I love having this. So basically, there's a couple, the next two slides really are bullet points on the different talk points on the circles through the roadmap. So let's just focus on the roadmap right now.
Okay.
And then, Donnie has those bullet points as well.
Yep.
But basically, when you go to the left side, you're really talking a little bit more about the buyer presentation and onboarding them as a client when you're talking about them finding a realtor and that type of thing.
Just that left side of that slide.
The very top. Very top. So, Of course, I would always tell someone, when you're first talking to them that, your first job is to find the realtor that you want to work with. I think we'd make a good team. And I would like the job of helping you find your home. So you want to just let them know you're there, you're available. But really, when you go through this roadmap, it's to explain all the things. What is like Phil Jones that wrote that book, Exactly What to Say? You never want to tell someone what to do not to know what to say at the time that you're asking them to do it. Teaching them these points up front, it avoids a lot of problems with your offer, a lot. So
managing those expectations so they're prepared when that time comes, right?
Absolutely. So basically, the first thing you want to do with, gets into the buyer interview. So you always want to review their needs. That's just, something that you want to do. But so the first thing I let them know is, hey, that we're going to set you up for a search on properties. We'll be available. And again, this is part of a buyer interview. We can do that another time. But this is where you also want to let them know, go and see properties. I'd go back to the roadmap because it makes more sense. But, when you go see properties, this is where you're going to explain that call me when you want to see something. Let them know when they're going to new homes that they got to make sure they mention your name so that you can represent them there. But that's just teaching them how to look at properties. But this is the big one. This is where it starts on writing the contract. Deciding on the one. So I just want to let you know, when we find the property and you decide on the one that you want to buy, I want to let you know that we don't use the list price as a guide. So if we see a property and you tell me, well, I'll offer $10,000 more, I'm going to offer $10,000 less. We protect our clients. I don't want you to overpay. I'm going to send you a very detailed analysis of the property so we can make an educated offer. Because some listing agents price the properties under market and some are overpriced. I don't want you to overpay. I'm going to make sure we're in the right target.
Right. The list price is almost irrelevant to you. You're going to go do your own analysis of what it should be priced at. Then we'll price based on that strong data so we feel better about our offer.
Yeah. And if you want, you could go to the next one, the email, because that is how detailed that we send out.
So you send them a whole property evaluation email. Hi, Dearly and Rosalie, attached to the comparables. So you're leading up all the comparables there.
So we're going to list what is the price per square footage. We're looking in the towns of Vanderbilt is where this one was done with how many square feet are above grade, what's the total, the bedroom, the bathrooms. You got to show them what Zillow, Redfin, or First American has because they can look it up on their own anyway. And they're going to say, well, I saw Zillow said this. So I'm just going to let it be there.
Right.
But then we're going to do a link to their property and then to the neighborhood. And honestly, if I also now, because of the lack of inventory, we're doing the whole zip code because people
might not be a lot of comps.
Yeah, your new comps might be. But then you're going to take each property and break it down. How many square feet does it have less? Does it have a new kitchen? Does it have a new bathroom? And by the way, the difference in putting in an offer like this is because it requires work. It's more work, right? It takes these emails.
There's so many people right now, they're like, oh, that's a lot of work just to write an offer. But you're preparing them to win, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather go show 6 more houses and then lose 4 more deals or win the house they want right now? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we break down each property. So if they say, oh, well, I saw one on Zillow and it sold for $530, I can say, yeah, well, it was less square footage. It was not remodeled. And so it's all in there. So that way we break down all the sales for them. And by the way, an email like this takes an hour and a half to do. But this way they're not going to tell me what the value is. I'm teaching them what the value is. And then as you get towards the end of the email, you can go down a little bit further, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's not there. But
I think that was where it ended.
Okay. Well, so then you break down what the average, it was the one before. Okay. We'll break down the average of what the houses in the subdivision sell for, what they've sold in the neighborhood. We're looking at same age, similar square footage. And then I don't ever say, based on the comps, this is the price. I say, I look forward to discussing the strategy for your offer. So that way they have all the information. Right.
Now you can base your strategy based on having all the information.
Yeah.
Right?
And I already know if I look at this, if the house is priced at $550 and I see things going for $585, we're at a lack of inventory. I look in the subdivision next door, one the same size, same age, just sold for $600. Guess what? You're going to have to go over $600 if you want this house.
Right. But it's kind of set that stage for what that looks like. Mm-hmm. So now we get to writing the contract. Did we miss anything during that process of the pre-pro? What did we miss? Yes. Okay.
So many people.
Let's go back.
So writing the contract. So basically, when you get into writing the offer, this is a big mistake a lot of people make. For one, before you write the contract, the first thing you should do is who knows the listing agent? And that's a big thing on our team. If if someone, says, I'm sure it could be a thing in the Samson chat, does anybody know this listing agent, Right. And I say, oh my God, they're like my best friend, call me. and then I'll do an introduction and say, hey, so-and-so that's with me in Samson is writing a contract on the property. Can you help me out? Is there anything we can do to win? And a lot of times people want to help people that are asking and know people. So it's always good to find out if there's somebody. I'm sure if you call Donnie, he may know everybody. He can.
I've either tried to recruit them and they've turned me down, or they've joined us right at this point.
But it really helps if someone can give you a leg up that this agent's a great person to work with. But then you're going to call the listing agent, and listing agents hate this dialogue. How many offers do you have? If I submit one, when will I hear? It's just like you're over and over. So you just can't call with that basic information. And if you say, how much is it going for, they're not going to tell you either.
Right. Well,
okay.
And I'm going to say this one thing about, you say calling and asking those questions. I think so many people make the mistake of, the listing agents have put that information out there. And I know you have this in the next slide about the disclosures or time frame. A lot of times, if you've put it on the other documents and you said, these are the things we're looking for, and then you call and ask, what does that look like? It already looks like to the listing agent, well, this buyer agent hasn't really done their homework. They haven't even looked around to find the information. They're just kind of asking me the information I've already gone to the trouble of putting out there for people. So yes, call to try to create that rapport, see if there's anything special, but look around. Find the data that's out there first. You come across looking like a much more educated agent if you are, like I already know you want a March 15th closing date. You want to use Cardinal Title Group, of course. You want this inspection, whatever. But is there anything else special that I can use to help the sellers, feel really excited about my offer?
Yeah. So when we're calling, the main thing the way that I approach it is like, let's say the house is listed at $550 and you're seeing, I saw a couple comps that could push this to $575 easy. And I'm thinking it's probably going to go for more because I'm sure they're going to have 10 offers. So if you ask how high it's going to, they won't tell you. But most agents, if you say, I know you're getting a lot of activity, but I got to ask you, would it be worthwhile if I submit an offer at $575? And some of them will be like, oh yeah. Then I'm like, okay, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
And if they're like, well, I don't know how that's going to play. I mean, that's kind of, they'll tell you, you can usually get it out of them. Then and then like sometimes I'll say, if I know my buyer would go to 620, I'll say, do you think 600 is a possibility to win it? And they'd be like, oh, that would be a great offer. Then I'm like, okay, I'll tell my buyer, submit at 620, escalation, we'll get it.
Right.
So you just got to ask, to try to feel them for
They're
what
not
they
going
have.
to tell you, but if you
But
throw
you
out
can't say
numbers,
how high do I need to go, but if I could do this, would it be possible?
right.
Then
It's
sometimes
about framing that question and then letting them, trying to judge their response from there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to see how excited they got about that 600 number, right?
Yeah.
And as a listing agent on the other side, play it cool, all right? Don't come out here, oh, 600 would be amazing. Yeah, bring that up, play it a little bit cooler than that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So now you've found out from the listing agent as much as you can squeeze out of them. Now the value of the property because you sent it to your buyer. After you call the agent, then you call your buyer. So you've sent them the CMA, you talk to them, and then you say, hey, look, we looking at the data, this is what I'm seeing on the pricing. I think that, let's just say that it's listed at $550. I think it's slightly under market. It's going to end up getting bid up over $620, right? And by the way, I know the last one sold at $600, but if you don't go a little bit over, you're not going to get it. And guess what? If somebody else gets this contract, it's going to be the comp for the next one you're going to buy, and you're going to probably pay more than $620.
Right.
So you've got to let them know every time they say I'm passing because it's going too high, it's the comp for their next sale.
Right.
But
that's a good point. Some people don't think about that, right?
Yeah.
Look, you're still interested in a house in this area. Well, fine, you didn't want to go to 610 for this one, but it's going to go at 610. So it's going to be what all the next ones are going to be judged against. Now, if it's just you don't love this house, that's fine. But know that this is going to be the new price point for this neighborhood.
Yeah, and I tell everybody, don't look for the perfect house in this market. There's not that many to pick from. Jump in, get your equity, get the nice one in 2 years if you want. So.
There you go. But at least jump in and have a house, right?
You got to jump in and have a house.
They're all not going to be perfect, but hopefully it checks enough boxes. And
if it checks enough of them,
right.
you're good.
There you go. So You have that buyer strategy call down.
So now, and then I tell them, hey, and they say, well, I really don't want to go. I say, hey, well, I talked to the listing agent, and I can already tell you that I had asked her if we would have a chance at 600, and she wasn't very favorable of that. So I already know we have to go over. If I could get the information, I try to get as much as I can.
Sure.
And by the way, if the agent doesn't give you information, the worst thing that makes me crazy is that as a listing agent is when buyer agents say, well, I didn't get a counter offer. My buyer would have paid more. If you don't, you always put your best foot on the table when you're writing it. You're not guaranteed a second chance.
Right. Right.
Right?
Especially if you have multiple offers, right?
Yeah.
But never assume that you're going to get a second bite at that apple. You
no,
got one
because
shot.
if somebody knocks their socks off and they like the offer, they're going to take it. They are not going to have any idea whatsoever that your buyer was willing to go higher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So don't keep those cards behind it. And then there you have, look at the document tabs. And that's kind of something what I talked about earlier. See all the instructions, follow the instructions, because that's part of the key is you want to win over that listing agent as well, because you want to make sure that you look like a competent buyer and a buyer agent that they want to work with, right?
Absolutely.
Some other contract tips.
Is this so basic? Fill in the spaces.
But I was on a panel, or I led a panel for NV Northern Virginia Real Producers the other day, and it came up there. When you're considering contracts, is these people that have empty blanks and don't have it fully filled out, they're out right away on that. Like the listing agent doesn't want to deal with you. So this might seem simple, but it's super important as a listing agent. You want to make sure that you've got a competent, good buyer on that other side that you want to work with. But go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the first thing anyone should do when you're writing a contract is go to the document tab. There are a lot of agents that list who the offer gets CC'd to, who the listing agent is, what the co-agent is, what the seller's name. Don't import it for MRI. Say, oh, that's what MRIS imported. Make sure you look through I look through the document tab and make sure every single thing they want on that contract is on there. If they say the seller wants a 60-day post-occupancy, let them know. So those are things that you have to do in order to make sure that you're writing the contract thoroughly.
Well, just from a material aspect, even if you had one or two things wrong, you've given them an opportunity that they have to send something back for you to ratify. You've extended the process. You want to send that perfect offer over that they could sign and ratify. The longer the back and forth goes, even on simple things like, okay, well, you had seller's names wrong or this wrong or whatever, well, all of a sudden you've opened up the door for other people to come in and be a part of this conversation.
And just like when people don't fill in the agent information, so many agents are so lazy about filling that in. When you get that filled in, let me tell you, that's okay, that agent took their time. You might have to go on DPOR and look up a license number if you can't find something on MRIS. Do it. Take the time, fill all of it out properly, fill your stuff out properly, have all the blanks, all the checks filled in, and exactly what they asked you to put on that sheet.
Absolutely. So you're CCing the lender, positive comments about your buyer?
When I send this email, don't just and this is a lot of people do this too, and I think it's a really, just a very unfavorable situation. To CC them on DocuSign, you get an email from DigiSign, DocuSign. It's are you serious? I got to open this up and review it all. I got 10 contracts. Take from your personal email, attach your contract, write something nice. My buyer has been looking. They've lost out on 5 homes. They absolutely love this house. They're expecting a baby. Can't wait to make this their home. I also
even if they're not expecting a baby,
you can just
say they are.
Twins.
It's a winner. Twins.
Triplets.
It's a winning line every time.
So, but let them know a little something about your buyer, about how much they like the house. Because sometimes I get offers, I think, I wonder how much they really like the house because I got 2 offers similar. So just let them know that, something favorable about the buyer. And then I always say, hey, I'm working with my longtime lender. My lender knows I CC her on the introduction. She knows she better reach out to that. Once I submit the offer, she has to reach out, usually within the hour. And she'll definitely respond to the email right away, say, hey, these people are super clean. They got a 780 credit score. They're putting, cash down. They can afford more. Please call with any questions. Just make sure that they jump in and let you know we're working with some good buyers. So I think that's important. And then after you do that, you should outline your contract so detailed that they don't have to read the contract. Like, this is the stuff we put in. Sales price, if there is any seller concession, the escalation.
I want to stop real quick on that. Sorry, Carolyn, because this is a huge pet peeve of mine. Okay, don't write over an offer and say, offers full price $450,000 or $20,000 over list price, $460,000, and then go to the contingencies. And then I open it up and see that you've written $10,000 in seller concessions or 3% closing costs. Then it's like, you're basically a liar. I don't want to work with you from the beginning. You knew there were concessions in there. You knew it wouldn't help your summary, but were you waiting for me to find it? Like, I don't trust you now from the beginning of the transaction, and I don't want to work with you. Like, I literally would want to push my fist through a screen when I'm like, don't say I'm sending you a full price offer or put a summary and exclude. That's a big deal. So I stopped at seller concessions just because, look, if it's there, it's there. They're going to find it. Disclose it all. Make it a summary. Make it clean for that listing agent to see it and know they're working with a competent
And you
buyer.
can even put little notations here. Like if it is a buyer that has to have seller concessions, you can say, they're asking for $10,000 seller concessions due to the fact that we see the house needs a lot of repairs. They want to keep more cash on hand for repairs. They're paying over list price, but they do need those seller concessions. So whatever, but put a little explanation up next to it. And then, but fill in settlement date. If they're flexible, put a little date, say this date is very flexible, we'll accommodate your seller. Just let them know that what your buyer is able to do. But you should put down what kind of financing, what lender you're using, the down payment that they're using. And, if you're submitting an offer with one of their online lenders or something, make sure you call that lender and say, oh yeah, they're a great lender, I've talked to them. Don't just send it over, here's one from so-and-so. Talk to that lender and make sure they're on board and available.
And I'm sure you do this, but if you're they're putting 20% down, they're working with, AB's First Heritage Mortgage, right? I'll give a team sponsor here. But you're going to put whoever that lender is, you're going to put, I've been working with them for 10 years. I've been working with them for 15. Throw in stuff like that.
Long
because
history,
it builds that relationship. It builds their confidence in you and that lender and you guys getting to the finish line together. So whatever you can do anecdotally to make that even a stronger summary, I would add in. I'm sure you would do that as well, but just throwing in that tip.
Yeah. And then when you get to appraisal, if there is on your contingencies, by the way, most of them auto renew, so keep them very short. Appraisals and finance and lenders can move that very quickly if they want. They don't need as much time as they used to.
Right.
They wish they were busier now. So really, seriously.
Sure.
But if you do have one, just say, that, you just got to let them know that they're either, if they have one, just say, look, we're going to get this done quickly. And they like the house, they have cash to bridge, they don't, or whatever. Just let them know. But just go through and explain it and make sure if there's any special terms the rent backs, the post occupancy and all that. It's really important to make sure that all of that is explained to the seller too, what your availabilities are. And then if you go back to the roadmap, Donnie.
Yeah, I was going to steer us back.
But then by the way, once you deliver the offer, ask them to please confirm receipt. And then after you deliver the offer, send a video text. Hey, I just sent you an offer. I just wanted to let you know I'm super excited with the opportunity to work with you. Call me if you have any questions. We're here and available. Thanks. Send a video. Very
personal. There you go. I like it. Connect to that video. That video aspect really changes things, and it makes you feel more connected, like you're a real person. We get to closing, and especially now in the days of not closing to each other, we could have done 3 deals with somebody or a transaction with somebody. We never met them. We never got to see who they were. We never even talked to people half the time. So that video text does make you a real person, builds that relationship from the beginning. So I like that idea. She made the mistake of flipping over her phone to do that. And if any of us know, you flip over that phone, I think she ratified 3 contracts. It was like 9 notifications, and I'm sure Carolyn's
I got to send a video out.
I got to send a video out there. So back to our roadmap.
So back to the roadmap. So that's how you talk about the one they decide on, right? So then you got to let them know when you write the offer, again, that you're not using the sales price as a guide, that, and we went through all that. Let them know on the negotiations of the offer. I let them know, I need you available. There's nothing like writing an offer and then your buyer's like, I don't know, I was sleeping or something. I don't know. Just tell them that they need to be available. I need to be available because I'm going to need answers from you if we're going to move quick. So I let them know we could get a counter offer. It depends on the situation. If you have, if you're doing escalations or what, or if it's just a straight out offer. And by the way, when you're submitting the offers, another good tip on winning them on the price is that if you go in at 550 and you know your buyer's willing to go to 620, don't leave your base price at 550.
Right.
Because it just says, well, I'm only willing to go that high if I beat anybody over 550.
So you're saying don't escalate the whole way. Start higher with your base price and escalate up. It gives them a little bit more confidence than just using escalation.
Saying, yeah, if there's no escalation, they're already willing to pay more.
Right.
And if you want, we did one actually yesterday. We submitted the offer with, it was one that was a little bit higher. We submitted one on a house that was listed at 750. We delivered one at 775, but put a deadline on it for last night at 9 p.m. and said, because this one was actually priced high, so I don't know how high it was going to get. But I said, this is their offer. They're not using escalation. You don't need, because if you do an escalation, you're asking them to wait.
To wait around for competing bids.
Right, because then they're going to I'm going to bid your escalation up.
Right.
So I said,
once you're invited other people to the party, who knows what happens, right?
Yeah.
If I can lock this up now with a better offer, then I want to try to do that.
Yeah. So we'll tell the agent, in this situation, we said, look, we're writing the offer because my buyer wants to take the house off the market and they're willing to give your seller more than what he wants. And it's a really strong offer based on the comps. He waived all contingencies. And they had an open house plan on, for the weekend and stuff like that. So it was one of those deals. And so they said, well, they wanted to get through the weekend. I said, I hear you, but this offer is good until 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., we're taking we're withdrawing the offer, and we will submit like others will with the escalation, but we're going to start at base price. So it's okay, so you could take a guarantee of 775 now, or you could go on the market, and if no one does bid up because it was price high, they might only get 750.
Right.
So they took it.
There you go.
So you have
congratulations.
But you have to let them know this is my buyer's offer now. If they don't have to
and
compete.
that leverage in a timeline doesn't work, guys, if you say 750 and you offer list price. Well, as a listing agent, a seller, unless they really don't want to go in the market, which they're already prepared to do, they've already prepared the house and all, then I might as well see it out, right? You have to give them some incentive to not go see the weekend. Say, well, look, this is the 775. You can take this now, and if not, okay, we'll pull it tomorrow. We'll bid like everybody else, but we don't know what the bidding's going to look like. But just offering list price, that's not enough to move the needle a lot of times in this thing, to take something off the market on Thursday night like you asked for.
It's even worse that if you submit an offer with base price and an escalation, and then you're wanting an immediate answer. No, the sellers don't want to do that.
Right.
You're encouraging them to wait. So if you want to take a house off the market, write an offer that makes them want to take it off the market.
Right. You got to write that take it or leave it offer that's a good, strong
And then
offer.
if they don't do it and the seller wants to wait, withdraw it and resubmit a new one with your escalation.
Absolutely. I have a question for you, and I don't know how much you want to go into this, and I know we have a roadmap to go back to, but when we talk about that buyer prep interview, because a lot of times maybe the conversations we have a tough time are pricing is one thing, right? But contingency talk.
That's all in here.
Okay, there, I know it is
it's
in that
the
roadmap. But do you get into kind of preparing them ahead of time, I guess is the question, in that initial buyer interview or early in that process? Do you talk about, because I'm guessing the time for that buyer strategy meeting, you've already kind of discussed, okay, what is a home inspection? What is an appraisal contingency? What are financing? Those are kind of our big three, right? Or rent backs. Do you discuss all those things up front? What contingencies you may or may not have to remove or not have to remove, or do you wait till this time of offer?
Yeah, and I have these slides all messed up actually. The way I'm looking at, we're going over the information. I should have done a little bit different. But what it's okay because we're on the roadmap. But what happened is that we went from once you decide on one, how you write the offer, how you submit it. But I go through this whole roadmap before we even talk about writing an offer.
Gotcha. Okay.
So this is how I'm going to go through and explain to them. Just when we hit write an offer, we went through how we do that, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
But then I'm going to let them know you're going to come down to earnest money. That's one of the big ones here. And on earnest money, that's where you want to tell them. In our market, you'll see 1% to 3%. Again, asking someone to do something at the time and then almost arguing with them about what is standard in our market, it's not good because they don't understand. But if you let them know ahead of time, and I tell people here, as a matter of fact, you could put down a 10% earnest money deposit and blow everybody out of the water. It's a good way to win a contract and not pay any more for the house because you look serious, right?
Right. And that money's going towards your down payment. You're not putting up any more money.
It's no
You're
extra.
planning to buy it,
It
right?
just protects.
Just comes out of your bank account 4 weeks earlier.
You can't default. Yeah,
right.
That's all. So
we don't plan on defaulting though, right?
No. That's the thing. Like, so I let people know what you should do and what you can do to make an offer stand out. And
Gotcha.
some people will be like, I'll put $100,000 down. It's fine with me. I want to win the house.
There
so
you go. Let's go.
Let them do that. So if they really want the house, they will. It's just part of the
I have a side question to you. I'm really just asking your opinion here. As a listing agent, does that matter to you?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Not that I tell them, sometimes if I have lower deposit, I'm like, really? To get that deposit, you're going to have to almost go to
So
court.
if you had a $500,000 house and you saw 10% down is $50,000 or a $10,000, if you saw 10,000, a 50 and 100, do you value those contracts differently? Is it more of a tiebreaker or does it actually factor into a decision? If all offers, if somebody had a $10,000 deposit but they were offering $10,000 more and removing contingencies, like how important is earnest money deposit?
So it all depends on the contracts, right? So if I have one that has super favorable terms and it's better than the other one, then I'm gonna go with the other one. But if they're somewhat,
if they're pretty similar,
that one gets my attention. Like that buyer means business.
So if they really just, it's a shocking, like 10 to 20 grand doesn't really move the needle. But if you've got a shockingly high deposit,
50,000 or something, you're like, wow, man,
that's
a
going to
good
move.
buyer.
It's going to make you feel stronger about their buyer. Maybe even want to get them to those terms that match the other $10,000 deposit. So deposit does mean something to you.
It does.
And it doesn't. Everybody looks at it differently, obviously, right? But I'm curious, your thoughts.
It doesn't cost them any extra.
Right. As long as that's comfortable money for them, then put it down. Yeah. Right. All right, next slide. I jumped ahead on you. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Then when I don't talk about, negotiating, when I get to negotiating, I don't talk about all the contingencies at that point. I just talk about, how we negotiate and that type of thing. But that's on a buyer interview. It's a little different than what we're doing now. So, but when you get to the inspections over here in the corner, that's when I say there's a lot of terms that we can go through to make your contract favorable. But I want to let you know what I'm seeing in the market. And that's where I had a list of all the things that, let them know about inspections. Like, that a lot of people are waiving inspections. If you see a house you really like, we could get a pre-inspection. Let them know that.
Do you do that often?
We do.
Okay. So you have somebody that'll come in. What is that? Just my tidbits for everybody. So a pre-inspection, your normal inspector probably, or somebody offers a pre-inspection, they're going to charge you $100, $200. What's the going rate for something like that?
If you get a full inspection, you might be paying, depending on the size of the house, 5 to 7. A pre-inspection might cost 2 or 3.
Okay.
It's more of a walk and talk, and
so it's like a walk and talk, like an hour type deal before they kind of rate that off.
I tell them, we're not checking all the, to see if the electrical has reverse polarity, but we're going to make sure the foundation's sound, your roof trusses are sound. The roof's in good condition. Because
those are the things that are really going to change your dynamic if you buy a house. If you buy a house and 3 of the outlets don't work, you're not upset you bought the house. You're upset you bought the house if all of a sudden you look down and the electrical panels needs all the repair, the foundation's in trouble, or the roof's falling apart. Those are the things that you're like, I wish I didn't buy this house. But $1,000 in repairs, one or the other, nobody's upset about the purchase. But it's the $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 items you're trying to find, right?
And that's where you don't want to be talking to them about this when you're writing the contract. You want to explain that home inspection, you have the right to void, right to negotiate. Of course, in this market, you want to do right to void because otherwise they think you're going to nitpick. But I'll be honest, and maybe that could be, interpreted differently. But I think they're both the right to negotiate. So if you write a contract with void, and I say, look, I know we have void only. But,
Donnie,
but
in reality now, they're going to walk away. Are you going to fix these things?
Yeah, like they're not going to do this because the electrical panel is getting ready to blow up. So, if your people want to fix it, I can keep them on board. But if not,
Now you're only doing that for major things, probably, right? Like
a
$5,000 electrical panel or something.
If there's something serious.
You're not nitpicking them, coming back and saying, hey, there's. The sink is leaking in the kitchen, or the toilets are running upstairs. You're not coming and threatening them on that kind of stuff.
No.
But a major item, you're going to come to them first and say, hey, we're going to avoid unless you want to address this. The next guy's going to see it too, right? So that's kind of your stance on that.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
But let them know about how home inspections work so then they're not, getting crazy about that. Explain appraisal gap. I'm real big on removing the appraisal if they're willing to do appraisal gap, because normally I've looked at the comps very thoroughly because we broke the whole market down. I know it's going to appraise where we're at. Could be a gap. But I tell them, if you're willing to bridge a $20,000 gap, it's not going to be that short anyway. Just waive it.
Right.
So, but anyway, that's always a big thing. Financing, you have the ability to do it for 10 days or whatever. Most lenders can move fast right now. But anyway, it's automatic extension anyway. So if you had to extend it, you could. But most lenders right now are able to get it done.
I always found the financing contingency interesting because people feel like it is like this security blanket. This is my 2 cents. You can tell me I'm crazy. I always feel like it's this security blanket. And to the seller, it's kind of scary that they have one. But from a buyer, most buyers, they can probably remove it in the sense that they're only getting out on financing contingency if they get rejected for the loan. They probably haven't gotten to the point that you're writing them an offer unless the lender has already done a pretty good amount of due diligence on them, realize they're not getting rejected for this loan probably. I mean, the rates could change a little bit and they could not love their rate or their payment at the end of the day, but they can't just get out because they don't like the financing. They can only get out on a financing contingency if they're rejected. Well, most of the time, you're only rejected if you lost your job or you lied at some point during the pre-process. Like, how many times do you actually get rejected for a loan? Like, it's a very small percentage. So, I would always I would try to get that finance contingency removed from my buyer as many times as possible because it comes into play so little of the time. It feels comfy, but it's not really relevant so many of the times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You can always ask the lenders, can you give me the green light to remove this? And they know.
And a lot of times, and if they don't, then you have this great relationship with your lender. Get them to the point at that point of contact that they feel super comfortable with it. Maybe they've submitted their W-2s already or their 1099s, or they've done all their due diligence so that they had to know. Because most of the time, and look, there's a million different ways I guess somebody can get rejected, but they either lost their job or they didn't really disclose how their income comes in. Oh no, I make 120 grand a year, but they didn't tell that a lot of it was 1099 or a lot of it was W-2, or they can't really show that much income on a financing application. So if they've gotten to that point with the lender, 99 times out of 100, they probably feel comfortable with you removing that contingency, I would think. So
yeah, absolutely.
Just a side tip from me, but go on.
And we talked about earnest money. And then settlement date, you want to make sure that you try to find out what accommodates the seller, or if you can't get a hold of the agent, like some don't, make sure you put in there that this date is very flexible with my buyer. If they've requested a post occupancy, write one in. I always tell buyers pay their mortgage in arrears, so I always say anyone can give them up to 30 days free. I think
Right.
So. And always make the security deposit low so it makes it favorable for the seller. So, if you're in 10 offers, you got to make it favorable. There's just no doubt about it.
Right.
And escalation addendums, don't do escalation addendums by increments of $1,000. It's just it doesn't set the offers apart enough. If we're in the 500 range, I do them by like 3,000 or 5,000 different. So
you're like 1%-ish?
Yeah, you want to be higher, not by,
Now they're going to pick who they want. If I want Stephanie's contract or Laura's contract, if I really like Stephanie better and it's $1,000 better, well, I'm still going to figure out a way to make it Stephanie's. But if you've created a $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 gap, well, now that's compelling financing. Or you can create a reason where there's an actual real gap.
But if you explain all this to the buyers up front, then when you're writing it, they already understand the concept that you have to separate yourself from other contracts.
Right.
And then let them know, that the strategy will be developed for each property. I mean, sometimes we see properties and we're like, they're priced so high. If you even pay that, I don't even think it's going to appraise. So you just got to do the strategy and make sure they understand everything. Send them that email with all the information, breakdown of the area. Then they're educated. They know. Mm-hmm. And if they say, I want to make an offer of full price and there's 10 contracts and you already gave them the comp, say, what are you basing that on?
Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't need the practice. I've done this before.
Yeah. So And then not to say.
And I think if you've built this whole thing and you've talked to them about the contingencies and the process ahead of time, you've given them the comps and why it is, then they're much less likely to just say, well, I want to offer list price, because you've created a compelling reason ahead of time with all this data as to why they shouldn't. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, as an agent, you tell the buyer to be available for back and forth, but to be honest, the agents need to be available too.
That's true.
It's a problem sometimes.
Yeah, it's time to start negotiating stuff, and you're not available to do the thing. So we get back to where we were. We were writing our compelling contract. Were you here on your explanation, or where we were in the buyer roadmap?
We talked about about the inspections, and then from there it's really just letting them know that if you're closing at Cardinal Title, they're amazing to work with.
There you go.
And just letting them know what to expect when they can move, whether it's on settlement date. But that's kind of more this. We use this for our buyer interview, and what we do is we ask people, has anyone sat down and explained the buying process and what it's like to buy in our market today? I'd like to share it with you, but we go through this and say, this is what our team does, this is how we handle it, our team does. We would be willing to onboard you as a client to our group. I think we'd make a great team. How does that sound?
We would be willing to onboard you into our team. I love that, right? It's putting
you can come to our country club because
exactly.
we're happy to give you that invite.
Exactly. It's like, well, I want to work with these people. And I think that this is super important to have. Look, not everybody's going to have exactly like Carolyn's roadmap, but having this information so you're disclosing this upfront to the buyer and having this conversation ahead of time, you are so much more ready to make that winning offer. That was a terrible sentence, by the way. But you're prepared now to make that offer, because not only are they prepared to jump on board with you because you've shown the process from beginning to end, they want to jump in and be on your team and know that they're in good hands with you. And then when you get time to write that offer, they're ready to go that extra step because they understand different contingencies. They understand earnest money deposit and price, and that you're going to help them get to that rest point. So you just have a lot better chance to win at that point.
Honestly, for some people, if you're meeting them at the house, you can just sit on the kitchen counter and explain. Some buyers are, calling them and thinking about moving to the area or wanting to come, even if it's a client. I don't care. I don't take anyone for granted. But I tell you, you jump on Zoom with somebody and share your screen, and you go through this buyer roadmap, explain the process, explain how we work, and that, I went over all your criteria. You spend a lot of time with buyers on criteria, right? Because then they're like, and I bought a investment property out in Maine, and I tell you, I had the worst experience with agents out there. I'm like, it was just pathetic service. I'm like, oh my gosh. So if someone would have told me, would you like to sit down, and let me explain the buying process and what we're seeing right now in Maine, I would have been blown away if someone did this with me. But
right.
they just don't, it wasn't there. But when we bring buyers on Zoom and we go through this process, and as we're doing it, we tell them this is what our team does. As a matter of fact, doing this, we just won one of 20 offers last week. We've gotten some, great properties for our clients. Just you want to tell them like some stories, explain the buyer map, and then when you say, I think we'd make a good team. We went through all the data, what you want. We know the market. I'd be willing to onboard you as a client to our group. Most time they're like, where do I sign up at? Right. So we have a whole Dropbox of buyer agencies.
And I think that that's going to be even more important as we look at these changes going further, having to validate our value as buyer's agents and getting that buyer agency agreement signed and showing them why they should work with us, as buyer representatives. Just in general, all of us as realtors, is because we're going to have this new world where we have to show our value, and we have to make sure that they can see that we're pros. You need us to guide you through this process to make sure you have a winning outcome. So having a good plan like this is just a huge step towards that, getting that buyer agency agreement signed, getting them on board with you and your team, whoever it is, your individual, your team, you and that person going forward. So I think something like this is vital. And if you've been slacking on this, you need to get your act in gear, because you're going to have to show, buyers are going to have those consultations, those interviews, and that prep going forward, because you're going to have to show our worth more to them, to make sure that we get paid going forward, with some of the things that are going to be happening in our world, right?
Yep, and this is kind of more of what we're doing, just how to write a winning contract, but then the whole buyer interview, and maybe sometime we could do that, but that's when you're going through all your value props, and let me tell you how we get paid. Right. So then you're getting the buyer agency sign, letting them know that, you need to get paid in order.
And we'll see what that looks like going forward after today's announcements. But
I think it'll be okay.
I think so too, but we're going to all navigate that together. But that's important. So in your buyer interviews, when you're going over kind of
I want to let you know how we get paid. Here's the compensation. And
but you're having those conversations, which is key. And even before, we're going to have those conversations going forward probably. But having those conversations and making it clear gets them on board with understanding and being transparent and having the expectations that are clear how this process is going to look. And there's no surprises later.
I had someone, because I get a lot of referrals through the Tom Ferry network, and I got a really good buyer that was referred over that's looking like in the 1 to 1.2 million range. And they didn't realize that I was in the market. They referred this to another agent, another Tom Ferry agent. I ain't gonna say who, but the first conversation was, I'd be happy to help. The inventory is very limited where you're looking at, but I just want to make sure that you understand that you have to sign a buyer agency, because if the seller ain't paying commission, you're gonna owe me. And they were like, whoa. And so someone put in the chat, does anybody know who works in this market? And I'm like, duh, I do, So she's like, oh, well, that's awesome. So she connected me with them. We went on Zoom. I said the same thing, but in a very nice way, explained how we work, what we do. And, the agent called and said, oh my God, they are so relieved to be working. But it doesn't matter. Like, it says the same thing, but it's how you say it.
It's how you say it and how you show that you're worth being paid. I think is the other part of that, right?
Yeah.
So, Carolyn, you got your team's out there crushing. Any closing thoughts on what you want to kind of make sure that anything you missed along the education process, the contract process, and negotiation? Last tips you want to make sure that I didn't get out of you?
No, I think that's like kind of what our process is to go through. I don't know if anyone
has
any questions. And
so we're going to open up for Q&A now, but as we're waiting for that, so Zach's going to get a mic or somebody's going to get a mic to walk around if you have questions. But know that Carolyn's always looking to grow her team. She's also always here just for advice. She's been a fantastic, representative of Samson since she joined in October, just being willing to teach, help, answer any questions you have. She's all over our Facebooks and all that kind of fun stuff too. So if you ever are interested in joining your team, obviously reach out to Carolyn. But also, just if you have questions, I think she's been more than open on giving great advice on what that has. So questions and answers, or questions, then we'll give the answers. Looks like Rex back there through the darkness. So we got a mic here. Go ahead, Rex.
I know you touched on the offer deadline. Do you usually put that part of the contract or the email, or do you call the agent and let them know? If you've already shown the house on Friday and they have scheduled an open house for Saturday and Sunday, you have a strong buyer going in, how would you word the offer deadline?
I don't write it on the contract. I think it's too abrasive. In the body of the email, and when I send the video out to the agent, I'll probably explain that too, that they're writing the offer to take the property off the market, and we need a response by 9 p.m. or noon tomorrow, or they're going to withdraw the offer.
Thank you.
Left there. Because you don't want to pick a fight without an explanation. I think there's a softer way. You want to make your point across, but like you said, if it's just in a body of an offer, it can come across a little off-putting sometimes, right?
Hi, I have two questions. The first
You're only allowed one. No, I'm just kidding. You're allowed as many as you want. It's a joke.
So the first one is, what CMA system do you use to prepare the buyer analysis?
CMS.
There's no automated one. It's by hand.
So you use Bright
MRIS, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And the second question that I have is, how do you prepare a client that has a budget, for example, $700,000, and he's looking up to $700,000, but we know that that's probably not gonna be enough, So do you do search for their houses at a lower price, or how do you prepare them for that?
Well, of course, if they're only, the budget is up to $7,000, you're going to have to try to look at lower prices. They have a possibility to win. But you also too can maybe find one that is overpriced that hasn't sold. And by the way, everybody, if you got buyers right now, you're not going to sell houses sitting back waiting for something to hit MRIS. You got to be circle dialing, calling around. It's your job to find the seller right now, not just, oh, here's one in MRIS, let's go submit 1 to 10 offers. We're being very proactive about finding sellers for our buyers. And there's a lot of them out there.
Another good tip is obviously looking at that. We've got a Samson sneak peek board, where we all have to do these office exclusives beforehand as soon as you got a listing agreement. Well, we're going in there every day. I'm not sure everybody knows this, on our coming soon board on the desk, and we're pulling them all. We've got a couple hundred listings that are coming up in our company, and they're all sorted by city in there. So you could see, like, there's Aldi's first, just alphabetically. There's 9 listings coming up in Aldi that are in this. Now, maybe they don't have to show it or they don't want to contract it yet, but, you know, I know Caitlin Ellis and Steve Ellis have some. It's like, just because I was looking at it today, I was like, I might call Caitlin if that's a person. Hey, what's your one look coming up looking like? Can we talk beforehand, you know? Or if you got a buyer in Frederick, Maryland or whatever, see, do we have 5 or 10 Frederick, Maryland listings coming up? Maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't, but it's at least worth taking a look at some of those avenues, or putting something on the Samson Facebook group or our message boards, looking for those buyers. There's a lot of times we might have, you know, Ian might have a listing out there that's perfect for Carolyn's buyer, but if you're out there poking around, that's one really cool thing about having 13, 15% market share in Northern Virginia like we do, is that we've got a lot of possibilities out there for your buyers. So, you know, Carolyn's right, go looking for it, but we've got a lot of inventory within our brokerage that we could connect with as well. Over there, Miss Beth Ann.
Thank you. I always hesitate about the deadline vibe, and I liked that you said this is the offer to take it off the market now. We will resubmit and get in the mix if we need to. But have you had experience where that sort of sets the tone, where you're that even when you resubmit, you better be really strong because you've sort of strong-armed the seller at this point?
No, I think it's all how you present it. Like, it's not that I say, look, they really want it and they're trying to write an offer to take it off the market. But when they resubmit, they're probably going to go on a higher escalation than their original offer.
But again, there's a tone, right? I think that's the thing that I would take out of Carolyn, is that, you know, it's professional, it's strong for her clients, but it's not off-putting and aggressive like it me against you. And I think that sometimes when we have these deadlines, I think we get so into, you know, a combative mode, and you don't want to get that. Then you might get that response when you submit that second offer. So it's about, look, being clear on what our intentions are. We want the offer. We're going to try to get it, but coming back with that right tone is still going to give you a chance that second offer.
I think if you just write the offer and say, here's the deadline, it's like, that's abrasive. But if you say, you know, they want to take it off the market now, and this is their offer for that. If your seller is not willing to do this, we'll resubmit in a different manner.
Right. Setting that good picture. You got the mic right there. There you go.
I have a very basic question, but it's driving me crazy.
No.
What do you do with the buyer who you're sending houses to see?
You're sending them what?
You're sending the houses and the links and everything using the tools we have, and they get back to you with, I want the Zillow one that's at the other side of the world. And they continue to do that. How do you redirect that?
Well, you just got to reconfirm their criteria. You know what I mean? It's like, if you just got to say, so I thought you were looking in Chantilly. If you're going to be looking out in Woodbridge, maybe we should redo your searches. I want to make sure we're in the right market. What market are you looking to buy in? Just get them to tell you what they want or what they're thinking.
Right. In the back, there's a hand. I can't see a face, but I can see a hand.
Okay. Carolyn, you had mentioned home inspections. Regarding home inspections and radon, because radon could exist even where you didn't expect it, what is your conversation with your buyers sound like when going over radon?
Who, in my opinion, who cares? You can fix it for $1,000.
Yeah.
Like, so we're not talking about anything that's real. Like, if you could, and honestly, those 2-day radon test is only of the 2 days. I know personally, I did a radon test on my house when I bought it, and it was negative, and then I did a long-term one for 6 months, and it came up positive. Real slow, but it's only of those 2 days. Is it winter? Is it summer? So in my opinion, who cares? Go get a test kit, leave it in your house for a year, and mail it and see what you got. So, you know.
If that's a hot button issue with your buyer, then you're right. Then explain, look, test it after you buy the house. Worst case scenario, it costs $1,000 to put in a remediation system, but it's not a reason not to buy a house or to buy a house. Unless, now look, if you've got the 1% that is super obsessed with worried about radon, then obviously you have to watch
Test
that
it right
client.
away and put a radon system
Right,
in.
but for the most part, that's $1,000 issue. It's not something that's going to change the value or change the ability or why you would want to buy a house, one way or the other, right? I like a don't ask, don't tell. I don't want to know if my house has radon. If I test it, then I'll have to fix it, right? I'm only down there to hang out for a little bit. I'll be fine.
Your poor kids.
They do have sleepovers down there. Maybe I should test it. Vibs over there. We got another question over there. Sorry, Zach. You gotta let me know that, bro.
Good afternoon, Carolyn.
Hello.
My question, you pretty much was brought up in multiple topics with trying to get the seller to commit to an offer. I noticed with the residential contracts, there's no time of the essence clause in the contract. So how do you try to get a seller to commit to an offer, within a 24-hour range?
You mean if you're representing the buyer?
Right, if you're representing the buyer.
You gotta just write them an offer they want to sign.
So do you use an addendum, or do you use?
No, I don't think, in my opinion, because we're in West Virginia too, and they have the offers good until it just really,
They have that there? That's
they
cool.
do.
I like
They
that.
do have it, but
At least then it's not off-putting because it's normal. It's in there.
But
Right.
the only thing is that, to be honest, you can, I tell buyers, they say, when will we hear? I don't know, you can withdraw the offer whenever you want. So the offer is only as good as we leave it in there. But, if they want a quick response, we had one yesterday, we got a response on, it was another one with an open house on Sunday, this coming Sunday, and we got them to take it off. But one of the agents on my team just kept saying, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? We want the house. We want the house. And they raised their price. They wouldn't do it initially, raised the price another $10,000, and the seller took it. But you can't just bug people and say, when are they going to sign it? You got to make them want to sign it.
If they're not responding yet, it's because the offer's
Your
not good
offer's
enough
not
yet.
appealing.
They're going to keep waiting until the offer's good enough.
In another situation, if you're representing the buyer, you want to, submit multiple offers. But
Ooh.
if you don't have like a clause in the contract or an addendum to have an expiration date on that offer,
You could, I don't know. In my opinion, I don't think.
I would stay away from doing those. I think that
I
they're.
won't say
I
that.
understand if your mind works procedurally, you want to have hard deadlines, but it's only going to off-put some of the sellers and listing agents on the other side. Don't add those things in. To Carolyn's point, if it's bothering you or the buyer, you can always call and say, look, if we don't get an answer by noon, we are going to have to withdraw our offer because we have other interests we want to go after. We'd love to get the house, but putting that stuff in writing and stuff, it's just
inflammatory.
off-putting. It's not going to get you the results you want. You can always pull it back if you're not happy with the timeline that's going on. Bibs.
So my question is, when in this market, think about the property cost of 500, selling for 575. Could we go up to 625?
You got to look at your comps.
Yeah. After look at the comp and all this stuff came. And then my buyer willing to go up to 625, but selling for around 600. In those cases, if I wrote a solid offer like 580 or something like that, but again, I have a little bit chance to somebody can escalate it, that timing frame, put a 620. So in that scenario, we should put a solid offer and escalation with a deadline to, 12-hour or 13-hour, things like that.
You're not going to get a deadline on an escalation because the seller wants to wait to escalate the escalation.
Whenever you're writing an escalation, so I want you to get that point from Carolyn. I'm not sure it's leaning. If you want a deadline and you want somebody to take off the offer, the escalation is not the best way to do that. If you wanted that property off the market and they're willing to go to 620,
Pay 620.
offer 620 and say, my offer is good, 620. We need an answer by tomorrow at noon, or else we're gonna take it off, and then we'll resubmit a different offer, which would include an escalation addendum. But when you put something in with an escalation addendum, the seller is going to automatically want to wait around to get other offers to push you to 620. They know you're willing to go to 620. Why would they settle for your 580 now? They're never going to do that. It's never going to feel like enough money to them. So they're going to want to string that out as long as possible. If you want to take it off the market, make the offer that makes them take it off the market.
So why I said in the same strategy I use for RD market, and I pull the property and cancel the open house and save like 40, 50 grand for my buyer, So that's why I was asking. I just did a last month.
Yeah, every situation is different. I'm going to answer for Carolyn here. Probably sorry, but every situation is different. If you don't want to go to the top of the market because you have to have it to take it off and go to 620, great. If you think in that scenario, let's offer 590 today to get off the market, or 600 today and see if they'll take it off the market. Now, look, you might pull it back and still get it for 620 in the weekend, or you might get it for 580 on the weekend. We don't know yet, right? But you've got to kind of do your analysis ahead of time, figure out how much that buyer really wants that property. If they've got to have it, then make that offer right now and don't open it up for bids. But if they're willing to roll the dice and see what happens, then it could be 580, it could be 620. We don't know.
You make an offer for 620, they're not willing to take it off the market, make one for 640. Like, just you have to look at the comps. It's all situational. Depends on how the property's priced. And
Thank you.
And something might work in Aldi tomorrow that doesn't work in Chantilly the next day. It might work in Leesburg the next day. Every situation's different. Every seller's different. Some sellers want it off. They'll be happy with what they got. Some want to see every single offer come in and play all 15 of them against each other. But most if they see that great number on Friday, they'll take that great number on Friday and not deal with the crowds coming through their house all weekend. There you go.
So since we have you here, and we know that you do a lot of business.
That's you.
And we know that your team does a lot of listings. I want to know I have two questions. One, how are you combating now that sellers are out here that they want to list their home? You have to stay in touch with them a lot because everybody's calling them. That one phone call that you used to be able to make, or that 2 phone call, now you're making 6 and 7 to the same person who you already built a relationship with, but you're still trying to get that listing on the market. How is your team combating that? That's one. What are you doing to get that seller to put that house on the market? And then the second thing, interest rates right now, it doesn't look like they're going to make a change. Why? Because if they lower the interest rate, then they have to look at the inflation. If they look at the inflation on the financial side, you're listening to them on the financial side, they're saying they're kind of like yin and yang right now. So what are you telling that buyer who they can't buy down that rate because they need that closing cost money? And what are you telling that buyer now that they're coming to you and saying to you, hey, I heard about the commission situation that's going on. There's a possibility that I'm going to end up having to pay you. How are you combating those conversations?
So that's a lot of conversation. So, No. The easiest way to not have to call your sellers 10 times that's getting ready to put their house on the market is get it signed now. So I get listings. I go into the beginning of the year. I'll have 20 or 30 listing agreements already signed in October, November to launch in spring. Like, if they're getting ready to go now for school's out, we need to sign now. So you just get them signed, and then you don't have to worry about it.
I'm going to let her finish the answer, but one tidbit for you to try to get that signed is the second you have that signed, you can put it on a coming soon board or any kind of internally. The advantage we have is we have 5,700 agents around this area that you can expose that to without putting on the market, without doing other things. But at least now, because I have this signed listing agreement, I'm allowed to put it in some of these forums that I have thousands of agents in this area. Look, we might get somebody who walks in your door and wants to way overpay what you want to do. So you can't do that until you have that signed listing agreement. So that's one advantage to help them put their name on that dotted line so that you can start the preparation for having a successful sale with them. So go on, I'll let you
Yeah, you can always just tell people too, that during the, if you get me to list it ahead, we can network it, but we might get a crazy offer. Would you like to have a crazy offer? Let's get the paperwork done.
Right.
So anyway, so that's how you do that. And then what was the next
the
question?
Buyer and the interest rates and having to pay you maybe in the future.
All of that, you're just overthinking everything way too much. Like the average interest rate for the past 50 years is, I think, at 7. So it's not, it is what it is today in the market, and there's plenty of buyers that need to buy now. Like if the interest rates did come down more, their price is going to probably go way up. But the thing is, I don't think you really have to get involved in all those conversations about it, other than the fact that we're in a shortage of supply. The houses, as you can see, are going up in value. I don't think that's going to correct itself anytime soon. So if you want to jump in the market now, maybe you have lenders that can recash your loan, your interest rate. If they want to do a 2-in-1 buy down, we've had some people do that. But they got to buy today for today's market. That's what the interest rates are right now.
If you wait around for that 6.5 or 6, imagine the competition now and how competitive it is.
Instead of 10 offers, will be 20.
Yeah, that's not going to help. That buyer that you're talking to right now, you can honestly give them that advice that, look, I know you might not love the rate now. Then do a 2-1 buy down or look at an ARM or look at something that can get it a little bit lower and affordable. But if you wait around hoping that it's 6.5 or 6, you're going to have double the amount of people that are competing for these same properties with you. That's not going to help prices. It's not going to help affordability. Yes, your rate might be lower, but the price can be 20, 30, 40 grand higher if we see more people coming in against you. So waiting around is not the answer. You know, you could say, well, I wish I mean, if they had done it a year ago, how much better would they have been off? Even though the rates were crazy and they were 7, 7.5%, 8%. Well, who cares? You would have had the price, each house, 30, 40, 50 grand less than it is today. So we around next year, great. Maybe the rate's 6%, maybe it's not. But the house can be 40 grand higher. You know?
And as far as the commission thing goes, that's where you've got to sit down, do your buyer interview, sell your value, let them know how you get paid, and this is how we work, and I'd be willing to onboard you as a client to our group. But you know, there is a lot of stuff with the commissions. I guess more maybe today, we'll see. But you know, yeah, with the lawsuit, I don't know. But anyway, so but even no matter what, I mean, I know, like, you know, even if any fields change or whatever for commissions, whatever happens, we're still going to do business the same. I know in Tom Ferry, I'm big in that organization, and I work with a lot of leaders across the country, and there's leaders that are already dealing with it. There's Washington State, Destin, Florida, like they don't even offer compensation to the buyers, but they still do business like as usual. Like it's just that now you can say, you know, we'll ask the seller to pay the commission. Like really the sellers pay the commission now because it's in their price, but
right.
You know, so it's not really, it's just that, are you going to have to be skilled and stand out? Yeah, it's an opportunity market. So, but it doesn't mean our market's going to stop. I mean, no one's going to go write contracts and help people buy homes for free. So you're just going to have to be, you know, stand out a little bit and make them want to use you and be a resource for them. You're not just going to show up and open a door and write a contract.
Right. Those days are going to be fewer and farther between going forward. Any other questions back there? All right.
Yep. Hey, Carolyn, your business is super impressive to me. I'm just so honored to be in this small room. I hope that everybody here appreciates how incredibly blessed we are to have her up there today talking to Donnie. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, yeah, that.
But my question is more about your business and your team. I'm curious to know how many buyer agents you have on your team, and then what is your acceptance ratios versus your offer amount per week, per month, however you want to break that down. And then the last piece to my question is, you mentioned, you know, obviously in this market, it's our job to find our buyers, or even our sellers that we have waiting, right? Like it's our job to go find them a house to buy so that we can then list their houses. So how many off-market properties are you sourcing for your buyers on a monthly basis?
Yeah, we're actually really doing good with the off-market. We have, you know, I'm in coaching with Tom Ferry, and actually we had a big meeting this morning with my coach, Jeff Mays, and he talked about with every buyer you have, you've got to have the next step. Like you can't send them searches and wait for them to raise their hand when they see something. You should be pulling them searches, telling them what you see, calling agents in neighborhoods that sell in there. Do you have anything coming? I have a buyer. Maybe your seller doesn't have to paint and do the carpet, get ready. You got to be resourceful. But we had one last night, actually, at 10:30 last night, we ratified, which I'm super excited about. But Mona on my team, she is just the most she's always resourcing off-market properties. She lives in a community over in Middleburg, and it's just like a group of like 40 homes. So she walks into, do you know anyone that's thinking about selling? Like I have buyers I could bring in here. And so she actually said, you know, the so-and-so are going to be moving. And oddly enough, we sold that property to them, but they had a selling agent and they redid the whole thing. Like the whole house had to be redone. They put like, you know, a lot of money in it. And so she went up and knocked on the door and said, I heard you might be selling. And they said, yeah, we are thinking about it. But, you know, we had an agent that helped us buy. She says, well, you know, when you bought it, I do a lot of business in this neighborhood, and would you at least give Carolyn and I the opportunity to talk to you? And then he said, yeah, but I don't want it on the market. You know, I don't want anyone coming in. And she says, well, I can do it off market. So we did an off market listing with them. And then she like called every agent in the area to say, I got this listing, if you know anybody. And she got that under contract yesterday for 1.71.
Wow.
No.
That's amazing.
But you know, but it's hard to get the listings, it's hard to get the buyers, but you really do. You've got to step out of the box a little bit. And I think our resources for having That's like amazing to have all those listings.
Well, the other thing that Sarah did the other day, she had a buyer that was looking in a particular neighborhood with, call it 10 streets, 100 homes. And this is not new, but the circle of dialing to those areas or sending a postcard or door knocking. Look, it's real if you've got a buyer there, right? So she pulled the actual houses that she thought the models and everything and went through there and tried to find the 100, 200 homes that might appeal to them. And who knows? You might find a diamond in the rough that they're planning to sell in April, May, June, and they might be willing to open it up to your person now. But that's not lost effort, and your buyer will see that effort. And I don't know if you want to directly answer Karen's question. I don't know this, but I think all of your agents on your team do both buyers and listings, or are they just buyer agents?
And that's a good question. And honestly,
then what percentage do you have any idea?
Yeah,
what percentage?
that's the problem we don't know right now is how many submit and get accepted and don't get accepted. And that's something that we haven't tracked, and I want to start tracking. It's just, that's a whole other thing that we need to implement. We do get a lot of ours accepted, but I don't know what the rate is. And of course, sometimes.
Do all your agents do both though? You don't have
they
specific buyer and listing agents on your team?
Yeah.
I know some teams are different. They have both, but I thought all your team did both.
Yeah, some buyer agents aren't as skilled yet to do listings, but they all can.
They all can, but it's just a matter of their particular skill set or where the buyers come in or listings come in. Did that answer all your questions, Karen? Awesome.
Just wondering if you can characterize the McLean Vienna-ish marketplace.
Characterize it? What do you mean? Like it's competitive?
Buyers and sellers and the demand and
I mean, I don't know.
Go ahead.
I think it's not any different than anywhere else right now. They're all hard. Like it's hard in Aldi. Is it difficult everywhere? Low inventory, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's low inventory. It's competitive. I know my Uncle Casey works a lot in that Vienna market, and it's super. I know he's got tons of multiple offers on all his stuff, and they're 1.5s. He got multiples on 2.1 and 2.2s in there. But I think if you want to dive deeper, I know Carolyn works all over, but I know Casey works a lot in that McLean Vienna area. But everything I talk to him a couple times a week, and it seems like price is right. It's fine. There's a lot of overpricing in McLean and Vienna. I think you get more and more of that in the luxury market than any other market because people think their stuff doesn't stink and think it's worth $1 million. And we also find that agents in those price ranges, I think that they like to list homes and not sell homes necessarily. So they love to take that $2.5 million listing because it makes them feel good inside, even though they know it's worth 2.1 or 2.2 million. So I think that in general, I think from looking on the outside and talking to people, McLean and Vienna, you either have the ones that are priced just because they price where the seller wants them to price it, and it's not really going to move, and it's sitting on the market for a while, or if they're priced correctly, you're seeing tons of competition, tons of offers in that market. Other thoughts or questions? Or are we questioned out? Oh, one last one. It's not from you, Zach. Who's it from back there?
I can't see anyone.
I know.
Sorry, is it on? Okay, my name's Monica, and I had a question about the Chantilly zip code 22033. And my clients made several very strong offers, but we just keep missing out. But the conversation always comes up, well, what about the equity in 10 years? We're willing to go up, but are we going to be super under in a few years? And how do you, it's not really a worry, but it's still, the conversation does come up. So how do you address that?
So the average appreciation, like real estate, what I tell people is that, that real estate it's what I invest in. It's the safest investment we have. So we have a shortage of inventory, and honestly, I don't think it's going to get corrected anytime soon. By the way, everyone's saying it's going to probably be another few years. So
there's never been a 10-year period you could ever look at in our history
you lost
that you would have lost money in a property.
I think the average over was it like the last 30 years is like 5% appreciation.
Yeah.
So it's so it's safe to do, and
even the bottom falling out of the market in 9, 10, 11 when we saw the foreclosure all over the place in the short sales. Even those, we hit a couple-year dip, but even those got back to medium within a few years, where even the people that bought at the peak in 05, 16, 10 years later in 15, 16, they were above what they what they bought those properties for. And that was the biggest dip in American financial history, and you're not going to see something like that again because we were funding so many loans for people that couldn't afford those houses. That was the problem then, and that drove prices up. These prices are not being driven up superficially with people that can't afford these homes. They're all legitimate 5, 10, 20%
Qualified.
equity qualified buyers. You're not going to see a foreclosure epidemic all over the place again like we had in 09, 10, 11, or a short sale epidemic where people are just giving their houses back. But that was the only thing that could hurt value. So if you talk about affordability, that's one thing. But worried about the equity in 10 years, that would never be on my list of things I'd worry about. Now, 2 years, who knows, right? But you talk about 5, 10, 15 years out, you're never gonna have that problem in this market.
And I just want to comment on your well-written offer suggestion. I just ratified a contract that was exactly the same as another offer. And I had to ask what made you choose ours. And she said it was just so much better written than the
It
other
makes a
offer
difference.
that it just showed what the transaction was going to be like. So definitely true.
Congratulations.
Good job. And look, a lot of us have, if you've been on the listing side with 10, 15, 20 offers, look, it's great. You want to be the person that gets 20 offers in? It's also overwhelming. And if you have 5 or 6, 10 agents that give shoddy work and they look, 15 of these offers look exactly the same. Don't give them an easy reason to eliminate 10 off the top because they're junky agents that wrote bad offers and didn't follow instructions. They're going to eliminate 10 off the top and focus on the 5 or 10 of the agents that are qualified and look like people that you want to work with. So don't be the one that it's easy to throw in the trash can. We're looking for reasons to narrow it down to 5 offers. Right?
Gotta stand out.
There you go. All right. Looks like we've exhausted all of our questions today. So we just want to give a round of applause. Thank you very much for Carolyn dropping all that knowledge today for us. Any closing thoughts you've got?
Now, if
We've
anyone has
exhausted
any
it.
questions, honestly, or whatever, don't hesitate to, message me or whatever. I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to share. Guys, there's not a lot of companies out there where you get the number one agent and team in the whole company willing to share. So thank you so much, Carolyn, and we'll see you guys. Good luck out there writing all your offers.
Thanks, Donnie.